Hey guys, Lorena Magana here with NewFilmmakers Los Angeles. Today, I'm talking to documentary filmmaker David Turnley about his new film, Shenandoah. Let's take a look at a clip from the film.
I started to think about Luis as a person. I don't try to understand. He has family, he has kids. I started to think about myself, and I put myself in there. What would my mom and my whole family and everybody do if it was me? For tonight I need a friend.
David, why don't you give our viewers a brief synopsis of your documentary, Shenandoah?
Shenandoah is the story of a coal mining town in eastern Pennsylvania with a very rich immigrant history, in which in July of 2008, 4 of the star white football players on the high school team, football having been always a very important part of the community, these young men got into a fight and beat to death an undocumented Mexican immigrant named Luis Ramirez. And this is a portrait of a working class town in which this incident happened. And as the filmmaker, I was immersed in the town over a couple of years, and the film's been in production for the last 5 years.
How did you find out about the incident in Shenandoah?
I'd actually been out on the campaign as a photographer for Barack Obama in 2008 for several days. And there was a moment in time when, I don't know if you may have remembered, but he made a statement at a fundraiser in San Francisco in which he said effectively that the working class in Rust Belt places like Pennsylvania cling to guns and religion. And the pundits said, oh, you just lost the election because you've offended the white working class, which you need to win an election. And I'd always been interested in doing a portrait of a coal mining town. I've always had tremendous admiration and respect for the working class, for our immigrant heritage, and I was interested in a culture where they play really tough football. And I headed over to the coal region, and a friend of mine called and said, you need to go to Shenandoah. They just had this incident in which these 4 young men that apparently had never had this kind of a problem before in their lives, really 4 of the star sons of the town had gotten into a fight and beat to death an undocumented Mexican immigrant, and charges had just been filed as I was arriving in Shenandoah. So it was sort of a serendipitous calling, I suspect. I had gone with the intent of making a film about a working class community in America, and landed in the middle of a community that was just blown apart by this very dramatic incident.
How receptive was the town to you being there?
The community felt clearly extremely shaken by the incident, came very much to the protection of these young men. I had gone knowing that before ever understanding that what I was getting myself into in terms of the incident, I'd gone with the outlook of spending at least a year of my life trying to make a portrait of a working class community. So I had time on my hands, time on my favor. I think my background as a war photographer in a county where a lot of men are sent to war certainly was something that people felt some sense of respect for and perhaps identity with. Oddly enough, I'd played football as a walk-on wide receiver at the University of Michigan for about 2 weeks, but in a community that values football that much, that was also something that I think probably provided a certain amount of credibility.
In the film, one of your main characters is Gladys, who is a lawyer for MALDEF. How were you able to work with her on this film?
She had been working for an organization called MALDEF, the Mexican American Legal Defense Fund, and had seen an article on the internet from the local paper in a town next to Shenandoah, a town called Pottsville, in which she became aware of the incident and that in fact charges had not been brought against the perpetrators. She then called the local newspaper and they let her know that something really was sort of askew with the situation, because the same evening that this incident occurred and this man died, there weren't even any charges that were logged in the police log. And so she flew to Shenandoah, Pennsylvania and called a national press conference. And it was really on the heels of this that charges were filed by the county prosecutor. So given her role in the situation, I was interested in knowing from her perspective those events, and that's how we actually met.
Now that some time has passed, what has the reaction been like with the town? Have they changed at all? Have they felt any remorse?
I do think there was a tremendous evolution in the awareness and in the sensation of people in that community over the course of the story, which was in many instances very inspiring, actually.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.